Hello and welcome to the Kitchen Table Theology podcast, where each week, Pastor Jeff Cranston explores biblical theology that provides practical life applications in an understandable way. Thanks for joining us at the table. Let's get started.
Hello, and welcome to Kitchen Table Theology. I'm your host, Tiffany Coker, and along with my dad, Pastor Jeff Cranston, we are super excited to celebrate the 200th episode of Kitchen Table Theology today. So, Dad, how are you?
I'm great. I'm in shock that we made it this far. And thanks for listening, everybody. And we've got two things we're going to do today. This is going to be a different podcast. There's not going to be content in terms of Bible today. So to some of you, see you later. But for the rest of you, we've got two fun things to do. We've been talking for the last couple of episodes about a Bible that we're giving away, this incredible Bible that I'm excited about and excited to give it away. And we have a winner. And then we also have a guest that if you have been with us for any period of time or you've listened to earlier podcasts, you'll be very excited about. So we have with us today our friend Jen Denton. Jen, welcome back.
It is a pleasure to be back.
Kitchen Table Theology. You have been gone since December of 2022.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes. I looked it up today. Yes.
Just last week. Come on.
So this is why you're no longer here, because you keep disagreeing with the host.
Yeah, that's exactly why. Now you know the true story. The story behind the story.
The story behind the story. Grayson was in her senior year of high school, and your job had just increased and been added to, and you took a much-deserved break from the podcast after, and I looked this up too, 134 podcasts that you did, you and I together.
Wow.
Yeah, over 2.5 years. So say hi to everybody. Tell us what's going on in Jen's world. What are you doing now? How are you doing? All that good stuff.
Yeah. So it is lovely to be back with you all via the power of technology. No, we've had a great year. I appreciate you asking. Grayson is off attending and doing all the college freshman things. I mourned as a mama and then sent her out of the little nest, very reluctantly on my part, by the way, very reluctant. But yeah, I just had the pleasure of publishing my second book for curriculum resources for teachers, and have been on a present. I'm not calling it a book tour because it is not that. It is a presentation tour of sorts. So yeah, just freeing up a little bit of time, and on my road trips, listening to Kitchen Table Theology.
Well, on your sign-off podcast, number 134, you had just published the first book.
Yes. Oh,
so we're all.
Maybe it has been that long. It has.
Yeah.
Been just last week.
So we're all glad to know that one of the reasons you told us for no longer doing the podcast was that you were writing a second book. We're all happy and relieved that you actually did write the second book. So
I have proof.
Good for you.
I have proof. Yes.
And you leave this podcast today in a few moments after we sign off. You'll be doing an online webinar, which is what you do now, with about 800 people involved. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So the company I work for, Essential Education, we have just the honor of serving adults in multi-stages of life who have yet to receive their high school equivalency credentials. So we work to get them over that finish line. And a big part of what I do now is work with educators. Adult educators are a tireless group, even in this microcosm of very tired and hardworking teachers, because they often don't have the resources that they need. So enter Jen and professional development. So we talk about everything from trauma-informed instruction and mental health in the classroom to solving quadratic equations, which is right up your daughter's alley. But
yeah, Tiff could do that. I would struggle to spell quadratic. So
I would struggle to spell it and actually do it. So that's when you bring on a guest host.
That would be one of the words that I would not want to say, as you used to have words that you did not want to say. Yeah, before we sign off, I do want you to pronounce omnipotent. Just
one more time.
Omnipotent, even though phonetically it is omnipotent. Omnipotent. And I believe on two things. So as I'm writing, I'm the worst editor ever, because of two reasons. Either I wrote it, so I know what it's supposed to say, so that's the way my brain corrects it. And either it is in teaching kindergarten and first grade, you're a pro at inventive spelling. So you start to make up new words, apparently. Omnipotent.
I don't have any problem with any of that, but we're really glad to have you back visiting with us today in Kitchen Table Theologian. I knew that you'd enjoy hearing Jen's voice again. It used to be a very famous voice around here in these parts. She would get stopped in the grocery store and other places and be recognized for her voice. So that still happens, I'm sure, because
you can ask for an accountability partner. You can have a recognizable voice in a small town and see how easy you get right with the Lord.
Yeah. But we still see an awful lot of each other. Jen's still very active with her family here at Low Country Community Church in Bluffton, South Carolina. And as a matter of fact, we were together this past Sunday. So I was speaking and you were doing hosting. And so, yeah, it's so good to continue to see you and your family. So Tiff, where are we going today?
Well, before we get started, I have to say, you got me on this podcast because Jen was taking a quick break. And now a year and a half later, I'm still here. I think
that's what she told you.
In for a few weeks.
I did not. Yeah, I didn't know such thing. Hey,
probably not. Dad probably told me that.
If you put in the same commitment, you got to double what you've already done. So,
oh man, yeah.
To meet me, to match 534, you got to double what you've already done.
This is number 62 for you, Tiff.
Wow.
I'm
filling in.
Halfway there.
Without you two alongside of me, this would not be anywhere near what it is. I can promise you that. So I'm so grateful to both of you for doing this with me for a little over 4 years now.
That's right.
4 years and 1 month.
Let's go back to those 4 years ago. I know you've shared a little bit with us how Kitchen Table Theology got started. And I know you've said it was the worst year to start a podcast, all of those things. But Dad and Jen, you give any input here too, because you were there for the beginning. But what gave you the idea to start a podcast like this? Why did you want to start a podcast? Where did Kitchen Table Theology come from?
It had been rolling around in my brain for a few years, and it all stems, and we've talked about this before, but it all really stemmed from what I sense to be the growing biblical illiteracy of the average Christian sitting in a church on a Sunday morning, and not only not knowing the Bible real well, but not knowing theology at all. And I wanted to make the word theology something that we didn't run from, but that we ran to. And so one of our little taglines here is to put the theological cookies on the bottom shelf. And that's what we've been trying to do. And so I don't know if y'all remember what happened in 2020, but we all found ourselves with a lot of extra time on our hands. I had only heard of Zoom back then. I guess I had been on a Zoom call or two. Jen, you were starting to, I think, be on Zoom more and more with your work, right?
Yeah, back then. I was a year before that, so I didn't have to jump into technology.
But we didn't have any idea what was going on, and with all that, so we tried to figure that out, and then we didn't figure that out that well because all through the pandemic, you and I were sitting across the same table from each other and doing it that way. And let them come after me. I don't care.
No.
And we never got ill. At least from one another.
We were in a
but that's how we started.
Yes.
Yeah, we had to go through all of these. If the CDC is listening, we went through all of these things to make sure
we did the hazmat tent and all that kind of stuff. Everything.
But yeah, it was April of 2020, which statistics have proven to be the worst month of the worst year to start a podcast in. So Jen and I, of course, just jumped right in. And I approached Jen. I knew I didn't want to do it by myself. Because in my life, if I'm going to go down, I would love to take somebody with me. So my friend Jen, I knew had a little bit of podcast experience, right? And I came to you and asked you to jump in. And since we didn't have a whole lot going on in 2020, Jen somehow said yes, and that turned into a 2.5 year deal.
You mentioned a tagline. I have a question. I say this at the end of every podcast. The real power of theology is not only knowing it, but applying it. Dad, tell us, where did that come from? Did you make that up?
Well, no.
TM. She's already running it through her head.
Yeah. So Jen, you better have this memorized because if we ask you to sign off today for old time's sake, you got to be able to quote
goodness.
it.
I'm
No, we won't.
It's right now. Yeah.
Write it down.
So and all we say, and always remember the real power of theology is not only in knowing it, but applying it. So I had been reading a theological article of sorts, and it was a pretty brief one, just a couple of pages. And the author of that, I don't know who, said something along those lines and like that. And it kind of stuck out to me. And I said, let me play around with that a little bit. And so that's kind of where I landed. And it seemed to say what I wanted it to say, because we always want, and Jen, pipe in, please, not only to like inform and educate theologically, but until we apply it, it really doesn't do its full work in us. Would you agree with that, Jen?
I would. And I was even thinking, you mentioned literacy, biblical literacy or theological literacy. And that's kind of my realm of the world, and reading literacy or digital literacy. And you have to have two things. You have to have that application, and that's where that power of that statement comes from. But you also have to have the availability and access to those resources. And I know that was one of the things that in your heart work and in your prayer time bringing you to that point, is that there's a space, there's an area for this type of biblical teaching in podcast world and culture in general.
Yep.
And Dad, I know so many times in your sermons too, and with the podcast, at the end of it, after you've taught us and we've learned something, you ask the question, so what? What do we do with that? How do we take that from our head knowledge to heart knowledge? How does that affect how we live out our lives? So I feel like that really does help us answer that question. What do I do with what I just learned?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's really important when you come to God's word. So yeah, that's what we try to do, is give our listeners at least one takeaway that goes beyond the informative or the educational and moves to the transformational in the spiritual realm of their lives.
All right, let me ask you guys this. Jen, you've got way more episodes under your belt than me, so you get to answer this one. But Dad, you too. What are some of the most rewarding parts of hosting the podcast, being a part of Kitchen Table Theology? What were some of the hard parts of it? Do you have any great memories, an episode that stuck out to you? Anything you want to share that you have really enjoyed being a part of Kitchen Table Theology over the last few years?
Gotcha. I'll go first. I think one of the highlights for me is just I was able to learn so much along the way. You can never stop learning and stop growing deeper. I think I would have fallen into the category that earlier in my spiritual life, I would have said the Old Testament was boring and we don't need to really camp out there. And just, I think that whole area opened up for me, and with just Pastor Jeff bringing just the full circle moments that we have theologically, and then just diving into these things that we think we know about and we talk about like we know about them from time to time. Yeah. And that can be very dangerous, right? Like knowing just enough to get yourself in trouble. But yeah, that would probably be one of mine. The drawback would be recognizing my voice. But again, it has kept me. That was already happening a little bit before. I remember asking my kids, is my voice that and I didn't even get the word out. They just said, yeah, Mama, we could take you out like miles away. I feel like there was another question. There was a third part to your question, Tiff. What was that?
It was just a rewarding part for you, a hard part for you, and any great memories. I will always remember Dad trying to throw in those words that trying to make you say a word that you struggle with. He's tried to do that to me too. I slide right by it though.
Well, it was always fun working through podcasts through college football season. That was always fun.
Yeah.
Always a little bit of fodder there. But I do think you and I shared a lot of stories from our childhoods and things like that along the way. And that was always, I don't know, selfishly, it was a little bit cathartic on my end to try to work through some of those things.
Yeah, you and I have similar backgrounds growing up in similar type church. So that was always fun. I think we're recovering. We're still in recovery from those days, but so it's good to have a recovery buddy. Yeah, rewarding, I would say I'm always amazed at the variation and the numbers of people who listen. People will just tell me stories from being in some far-flung state, far away from here, and they'll run into somebody and say, oh, yeah, I recognize that because I listened to Kitchen Table Theology. The fact that last year we got into 82 or 83 or 84 countries. That blows my mind. Now, I'm sure in most of them we were only heard by one person, or it could have been somebody from our church that just travels a lot. I don't know. But it always amazes me the breadth of the reach of a podcast. And then the people who just come up and say just how much it's affected them. I heard of one person today. They're listening to it. They're listening to everything through for the third time.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Yeah. And said, it has literally changed my life. So whoever you are, and if you're listening today, thank you for that. That's so encouraging because it helps you to go on. The hard part is just the preparation. If you want to know what I'm doing on any given Monday morning, it's podcast prep. When I get up and have coffee and breakfast, then I start. And I'm usually done by lunchtime. And we then record the following day. And usually, sometimes not, but usually. So, yeah. And I think I don't know that any particular, somebody asked me yesterday to send them my favorite podcast. And I really couldn't think of one, but I know the one on propitiation because I just like that word, number one, but I like way more what it stands for. And I found it to be a word that people don't know, yet it's 6 times in the New Testament. And so there's a reward in sort of unpacking that word for people, and then the theology behind the word of the appeasing of wrath and expiation, all the good $5 words. But to know that has had an impact on someone and helping people to learn things that they really had never heard before, those are my favorite podcasts. And the ones that I labored over the most were the eschatological podcast, the End Times. And they went, they're so burned in on my memory. I'm pretty sure they go from 89 to 97. That was hard.
I was a church-wide study and a takeaway, and all those things came out of that. We had
a whole sermon series, and yeah, it was a lot because I'm like, man, I can't mess anything up ever. I don't want to, but I'm like, on this one, I can, and especially since so much of it we don't know exactly, so you're just having to wade into some very deep water. But they have been consistently, they are the most listened to podcasts. Therefore, that becomes some of my favorites because they're helping so many people.
Yes, your hard work definitely paid off on that one because the eschatology series is the most listened to episodes to date. So those were fun to listen to. I'm glad I didn't have to do those.
I remember Jen just sitting there a lot looking at me.
I was taking it all in. I was absorbing it. I was getting
I'm only kidding
sometimes.
No, man, you were right in there with me. Don't kid yourself.
So that's where I started sending you memes about what people think angels look like and then what they look like in the Bible, and they're like terrifying. I think I sent you those at least once a week through that whole series. Hey, what do you think this thing looks like?
If I ever start another podcast on people with warped senses of humor, you're going to be the first guest, I can assure you.
Good. I'm glad. I feel honored in that request.
All right. So, Dad, right now we have had over 85,000 downloads and 200 episodes, which is incredible. So thank you for all that you do, Dad. But it is crazy to hear the reach.
Yeah, appreciate you listening, everybody, and spreading the word. We really are grateful for that, for telling other folks about it and turning them on to Kitchen Table Theology.
So we are in the Bible overview series right now, and I counted this morning. We have done 42 of the 66 books of the Bible. So we are gaining.
Hallelujah. Yeah, that's awesome.
24 left, if I do the math correctly there.
And that was another one of the many things I've done in my life where I'm like, why did I decide to do this? But it's been good. I learn a lot. I really do. I learn an awful lot.
I have learned a lot also. That has been the biggest chunk of my time here with you. I think we did a few episodes before we started the Bible overview series, but so 24 left to finish all the books of the Bible there. Do you have any idea what we will continue with after the Bible overview series?
No,
Right. How about this? Will Kitchen Table Theology continue?
I think after this, we'll take a little bit of a short break, just to clear our heads. And then we'll come back with more content. Yeah. Here's the good thing. There's so much rich theology in Scripture that we'll never exhaust it.
No, never.
There's biblical theology. There's pastoral theology. We have been primarily systematic theology. So there's all kinds of different avenues to run down under the umbrella of theology. And just dealing with our culture, we could do topics like what we're seeing in culture and approach all those and apply theology to those. But I'm not saying that's what we're going to do. But we certainly could. Yeah, there's some other things I've got swirling around back there in the back of my brain that we could do. So, yeah, but I anticipate we'll keep going. Yeah. 24
more weeks of the Bible overview series may take us to the end of the year. So we've got some time.
Well, Jen, yeah, if you've got any ideas, please pass them along.
Oh, that's an I've got lots of ideas.
I'm sorry. Did I say that out loud? I didn't mean to say that out loud.
All right. Should we go ahead and announce our giveaway winner?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that would be exciting. So we're giving away a New Living Translation, high-end Bible. I mean, this is a high-quality Bible, the kind of Bible that will last you the rest of your life. It will not fall apart on you. It's a great Bible, and it's a filament Bible, and I've talked about that the last 2 weeks, and I won't do it again. So if you want to know what a filament Bible is, go back to one of the last 2 episodes. But what a resource. I mean, it's an incredible resource that you couple an app with the Bible, take a picture of the page of the Bible you're on, and boom, man, you have access to so much excellent information. And so to celebrate the 200th episode, we wanted to do a giveaway. So that's what we're going to give away. And a winner from all of these entries that we have received, we told you if you could leave a rating, leave a review, send an email, and you all did all of that stuff. So we have chosen at random, actually the computer at random.
Yes, Google randomly generated a number winner for us. Yes. Chose a winner for us. None of our hot little hands were on a piece of paper pulling it out of a hat. No. It was computer generated. Yeah. So tell us who the winner is. All right, drum roll. Our winner is Sandy Payne. So all right. So excited. Sandy, way to go, Sandy. I will be in touch with you to find your address, and we will get that Bible mailed to you. So congratulations. Thanks for leaving a rating and review or an email, however you let us know. We appreciate it. And hope you enjoy that. Yeah, please let us know when you get it. We'd love to hear back from you and hear your thoughts on that filament Bible. So congratulations, Sandy. Way to go. Awesome. All right. Dad, Jen, any final notes? Anything Jen, what do you got for us?
Oh, gosh. Final notes?
You've got this.
I guess I just still go ahead.
You have this vast audience of millions of download. Well, maybe in 200 years, maybe millions will have listened by that point. But yeah, get just something to our folks who've been with us. Some are new and some have been with us since the beginning.
Sure. No, it is. And I do say this with all sincerity, one of the most informative, and I'll even add it into the life-giving category experiences I've had. So I'm thankful for the opportunity, and I'm thankful for seasons of life where we're able to exist in a certain capacity. And then for such a time as this, move on and open up for new opportunities. So it has been a wonderful experience. It continues to be an amazing resource. So I'm proud of you as my pastor too. I'm glad to. Oh, well, you're very kind. Thank you. Leader.
Well, and Jen has agreed to, if Tiff ever can't make a podcast, Jen, I hope you remember this now that I'm saying it. You said if you can, you'll pitch in.
I head and I'm like,
yeah, you did say that. Yeah. Well, I'll just say thanks, Kitchen Table Theology, for giving us 200 episodes. Most podcasts, I think the average podcast lasts around 12 episodes. I think something like that. And to be at 200, thank you for being a faithful audience and an encouraging one. We love doing it for you. We love meeting with you. every time we do a podcast and love hearing from you. So thank you. And here's to a few more.
Yes. Jen, thanks for joining us today. We also need to say thanks to the team at Low Country Community Church. I know lots of people from there have helped us out over the years, and the team at Streamline.
I'll just say this about this costs money to do. And the good people at Low Country Community Church here in Bluffton, this is part of what they do when they give. So they also have a worldwide outreach because Low Country you give. So thank you. Yeah. So thanks, Jen. And those people at Streamlined make us sound way better than we are.
Yes, they handle all the technical things that I could not be responsible for.
Yeah, they do a great job. Streamline podcasts, yes.
Yes, they've been a huge help. They're super kind, great to work with. But also everybody who, Dad, you have interviewed over the years. We've had lots of guests on the show. So just a big thanks to everybody out there. And Dad, especially to you. You've put a lot of time in week after week after week for years. And I know I have learned a tremendous amount. Each week I learned something new. I think I say that every episode. Well, there's my new thing I learned this week. So I enjoy being here. I'm grateful for the opportunity, but we're excited for what's coming next, but not next week. Dad, we have a week off. We're taking a week off.
We're taking a week off because I'll just tell you, we're going on vacation. So we're taking one
big family vacation.
Yeah. And we don't want to do a podcast with 7 grandchildren running under my feet. So we're taking 1 week off. So Lord willing, we will drop the next podcast on June the 2nd. 9th.
No, June 2nd is our week off. June 9th, we'll be back.
You can see we have this. This is a well-oiled machine. We'll be off next week. So June 9th will be the next podcast that drops. And Tiff and Jen, thank you for being here with me again. And would not want to do it without you.
It's been great. All right. Well, Kitchen Table Theologian, remember
let's say it together.
Yeah. I know.
Okay. Always remember that the real power of theology is not only knowing it,
but
applying it. And we didn't read it. Well done.
All right. Bye, everybody.
You've been listening to the Kitchen Table Theology podcast with Pastor Jeff Cranston. Join us next time for more insights into biblical truth. If you'd like to know more on today's topic, please check out our show notes. If you have a question from today's podcast, kindly email us at pastorjeff@lowcountrycc.org. If you're enjoying this podcast, would you consider leaving a rating and review? We deeply appreciate your help in getting the word out. And be sure to subscribe on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, or in your favorite podcasting app to continue this journey with us as we learn about and apply God's Word to our lives. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time here at Kitchen Table Theology.